Good evening. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Wilmette Zoning Board of Appeals. Ms. Roberts, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Boyer.
Here.
Mr. Colang.
Here.
Mr. Rabke.
Here.
Mr. Sermon.
Here.
Chairman Duffy.
Present. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you new to our proceedings, the purpose of this board is to hear evidence on applications for variances from our zoning ordinance and on applications for special use. Based upon the evidence we hear this evening, we will make a recommendation to the Village Board of Trustees as to whether the applications that come before us should be granted or denied. We will vote to recommend granting or denying each application for variation based upon whether the application meets the standards of review set forth in Section 5.4.f of our village ordinance. Applications for special use will be considered based upon whether the standards of review set forth in Section 5.3.e of our village ordinance are met. Village Board of Trustees will consider the recommendations we make this evening at their next regularly scheduled meeting on September 11th. Our recommendations to the board are advisory only. The village board has the final say on all applications and will make its own determination as to whether to grant or deny them. The village board is not legally bound by our recommendations. There's one small exception to this rule. If this board makes a negative recommendation with respect to an application, in order for the Village Board of Trustees to approve that application, a supermajority of 5 village board members must vote to approve it, rather than a simple majority of 4. There is one other small peculiarity to our proceedings of which you should be aware. This board does not operate by majority vote. We operate instead by a tyranny of 4. In other words, no matter how many board members are present on a given evening, in order to get a positive recommendation from this board, an application must receive 4 affirmative votes. Ordinarily, this board consists of 7 members. Tonight, however, due to some absences, there are 5 members present. Ms. Roberts, as Assistant Director of Community Development, sits with us tonight in an advisory capacity only and is not a voting member of the board. Please be aware that, therefore, that a vote of 3-2 in favor of an application will technically go into the record as a negative recommendation with the legal effect that I have previously described. In recognition of this unusual feature of our procedure, when we do not have all members of the board present on a given evening, we give the applicants who are scheduled to come before us that night the option of requesting a continuance to the next available date on our schedule. The next available date for any applicant who would like to request a continuance this evening is September 26th. There is no penalty for asking for a continuance. No such request will be held against you when your case is eventually heard. If you wish to ask for a continuance, however, you must do so at the beginning of your presentation before making any substantive arguments as to the merits of your case. Please also be aware that if you request a continuance, there is no guarantee as to how many board members will be present on the evening to which your case is continued. The cases we shall hear this evening will be heard in the order set forth on the pre-printed agenda located on the table near the door where you first came in. When your case is called, please proceed to the podium, state your name and address, and tell us exactly why your application meets the standards of review that are applicable to it. Each member of this board is a longtime resident of the village and has visited your property during the past week. In addition, we have received those green booklets containing all written information that you have submitted in support of your application, as well as any other correspondence that the village has received. Accordingly, it is not necessary that you repeat what you have already stated in writing. Please just hit the high points with particular attention to why you believe your application meets the standards of review. After the applicant has had a chance to speak, we will open the podium to others who wish to speak either for or against the application. Everyone will be permitted to have their say, though we would ask that you keep your comments as short and to the point as possible. After we have heard all oral presentations, I will close the evidence, and the members of the board will discuss what they have heard and take a vote. Once the evidence is closed, no further testimony on an application may be offered. The only people entitled to speak during that part of the proceeding will be the members of the board. This meeting is a legal proceeding, and all testimony tonight must be given under oath. If you are here and planning to testify tonight, I would ask that you raise your right hand at this time and be sworn. You guys aren't going to... All right. Everybody's got their right hand up? Do you swear or affirm that you will tell the truth in the testimony that you're about to give? If so, please say, I do. Thank you. Ms. Roberts, will you please call our first case?
Our first case is 2018 Z36 241 Kilpatrick. There was a little snafu with the newspaper notice, but the personal notice was done. So we are asking that the case be tabled to September 5th.
We need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Boyer, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well.
Thank you. Our next case is 2018 Z34 1125 Wilmette Avenue. This is a request for a 1,212.57 square foot front yard impervious surface coverage variation to permit a sidewalk on legal nonconforming structure.
Good
Hi,
evening.
welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Paul Klitsky. I'm with Nature's Perspective Landscaping, and I'm here in regards to 1125 Wilmette Avenue. We are, looking to do a small paving area to allow access to the playground that they have just off to the side of their property, and it is easily accessed through the front. They currently have a bench area there right now, and it's just kind of soil that has a little bit of mulch that's on top of it, some wood chips that they're usually transversing, but again, it gets muddy, especially during rainstorms. They also, sometimes have a lot of smaller toddlers that are there, and they want to be able to park some strollers so that they're not, in the parkway or potentially blocking the sidewalk area for there. I understand that the structure is non-conforming, and it's part of the church that's just down the street. And again, I don't know when the structure was built, but I think it was quite a long time ago, potentially before certain zoning things were taken into account. Again, I do assure that we will do our best to pitch the paving area in a way so that the water won't shed off onto the sidewalk, which I know is a concern. I also understand, it seems that there's a little bit of kind of mess that happens, too, from some of the kids moving in and out and taking some of the wood chips with them onto the sidewalk, and they end up having to maintain it and clean it up and sweep it. So, again, we're just really hoping to be able to do this. We did take about 600 square feet of asphalt paving that was in their playground area out about 2 years ago and returned it back to sod. So, again, just looking at the overall permeability and the overall impervious surfaces, again, we hope that you guys would be able to grant a variation for our request.
So what products are you using?
We're going to be using a clay paver, clay paving product. Again, we had also mentioned to the zoning building department that we would be considering also that if they were concerned about, we could do permeable paving. Again, they were also concerned about the maintenance of permeable paving, and I do understand that there is maintenance, and to guarantee that it would be maintained is always a hardship, that our business can't obtain, so.
What are the dimensions of the area that are going to get paved?
Yeah, I believe it is now that's the one thing that I was looking here at. I believe it's a 7.5 by 10 foot area.
Yeah, it looks to be
Yeah.
6.65.
So
That's the thing that I saw on the request, or the.
So I'm going to, I asked the same question prior to the meeting with Lisa, and so I'll clarify that. So what Lisa believes is that 6.65 feet of width is to the property line. The 7.5 feet actually goes to the sidewalk.
Okay.
So that extra foot, they will pave, but we only are approving what's on their property, which goes to the property line, which is the 6.65 feet.
And the request is for 1,200, and that's larger because it was already over.
Yep.
Over. Yeah.
Thanks for the clarification. I was going to ask about that. Thank you.
Any other questions for our applicant?
I don't for the applicant. I have a couple for Lisa.
All right, I haven't opened that part.
I just have a quick question. Is that like where the kids get picked up and they go in and out of?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a gate that's there, and that's pretty much where they'll access the playground.
Okay.
Yeah, from the front of the building, and then also parents that are just taking
Sure.
the toddlers around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Boyer?
Are we open for Lisa questions
I was
now?
just pulling your chain, sorry.
So this is a a Wilmette Avenue address, and the front yard is on 11th Street.
Yes.
Why again, just remind me, why are we taking 11th Street as the front yard?
It's a corner lot, and so on a corner lot, the shortest street frontage is the front yard.
Got it.
And 11th Street is shorter by 2 feet. It's
And it
it's
has-
close.
And it's a corner lot, but it's also a pie shape, so that is a little bit.
Right,
And so
the
the-
rear yard is kind of
So
weird.
instead of using this as a side yard, which of the streets, if the configuration of the street or the lot was different, then it may have, this might be considered a side yard if it wasn't a pie and it was a rectangle?
Yeah, the side yard setback requirement would be 20 feet instead
Would
of
it still be
25.
20?
Yeah.
All right,
for
so,
a-
but there'd still be a reduction.
Yeah, it'd be
of-
smaller yard.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right.
Any other questions? No? All right, is there anything else you want to add?
No, that's all.
All right, then I'm
Thank
going
you.
to close the case, and I thank you very much for coming. And ask if there's a board member who'd like to make a motion. Mr. Sermon, your motion.
I move to recommend granting a request for a 1,212.57 square foot or 15.53% front yard impervious surface coverage variation to permit a sidewalk on the legal non-conforming structure 1125 Wilmette Avenue in accordance with the plan submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Boyer, second. Mr. Sermon, go ahead.
It's very straightforward. It's a small request, and I'm surprised that they didn't have it previously for that entrance area, so I can support it.
Mr. Boyer?
I'd only add that, it's a church in an R2 district, so they're getting caught up in the codes a little bit. It is near the downtown center, and the shape of the lot, and the need to use 11th Street as a front yard causes some hardship. So I think it meets all the standards.
Any other comments?
I would agree with all the comments that have been made, and also add that it's providing an accessible path to get to the playground, which I think is a benefit to the community.
All set? Yeah, this, to me, was pretty straightforward. I know it seems like a large request, but it's really a small area that they're paving, and although it is a convenience, it's also, I see the hardship in it because of the shape of the lot here. And so I, too, can support it. I'll take a vote.
Mr. Sermon,
Yes.
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Colang,
Yes.
Mr. Robke,
Yes.
Chairman Duffy.
Chair votes yes as well. So that's going to go as a positive recommendation to Village Board. Meetings September 11th. And I will need you to come up here and just sign one of these letters acknowledging some dates in your presence. So thank you very much.
I move to authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the Zoning Board of Appeals for case number 2018-Z34.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. Thank you. Nope. You too, good night. When you are ready.
Our next case is 2018 Z35, 514 Knox Avenue. This is a request for a 276.7 square foot front yard impervious surface coverage variation to permit the widening of the existing driveway on the legal non-conforming structure.
Hi, welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Daniel Buff. So the property is at 514 Knox Avenue. The garage, it's in front of the house, and I have a driveway approximately 500 square feet right now. It's in pretty bad shape. It's asphalt. So I plan initially to take it out and just do it wider, but I didn't know I need a variation. So basically what I want to do, I just want to add 2 feet on one side, 2 feet on the other side. I can park the cars behind each other because I'm blocking the sidewalk. So every time if I want to park 2 cars, I park on the grass in the summer, in the mud in the winter. If I get too close, the kids slam the doors in the other car, and that's pretty much.
So do you use the garage for the cars?
I can use the garage. I got a bunch of stuff in the garage, bicycles, and then just pretty much, I use the garage. I'm using the garage in the winter. I make room and I use it in the winter, but it's really inconvenient in the summer. I still have to park because I can't leave one car on a driveway and one car in a garage. I can't park two cars in a garage. I don't have enough room for two cars. So basically, if I want to leave a car on a driveway, I have to move that car, put it on the grass, and then so I can park one car. It's pretty either way. So I have to get on the grass. So I decided I just wanted to see if it's possible to just get. So basically, right now the driveway. It's so I'm adding like 276 square feet more.
Are you, well, I was trying to figure out what the addition is, actually.
So
And
proposed, it's about 276.7. So,
But I don't think it is.
You're not adding that much.
You're not adding that much. What's your,
possible not. I don't know. It was just
yeah, what it seems to me you're adding is about 2 feet on each side by, like, what, 22 feet, I think was the distance? Which is only, what is that?
About 50 square feet.
Yeah, it's really not, but the difference, when you do the math, is 150 square feet.
That's
So-
what I had.
Yeah, I didn't understand how we got to these numbers. So, what is it? Yeah, 24.9, so call it 25 feet by roughly 2 feet on each side, but it's really not because the driveway's got an angle to it. So that was really I should have asked you that before we started the meeting. But you just figured that whole area was the 276 square feet?
For calculating the current driveway, it is a little curvy, not straight, but I was just taking an average width. It's 22.21 at the garage and 15 at the sidewalk or at the lot line.
actually since it's curved,
Yeah.
and I just want to go straight.
Yeah.
It's hard to say,
Yeah.
exactly because it's
Yeah.
not like 2 by 22. It's curved. So basically, what I want to do, I just want to straighten it up, and that's it.
Yeah.
All right, so we understand what you're doing. I just want to make sure that we had our numbers right, but is it, it's hard to determine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
All right, so this is about getting a car out of the yard, in a way,
Yeah.
or wheels off the yard. So,
Well, are you concerned about the math, that 276 for an ask is greater than what is on the
Yeah.
the survey?
Yeah.
But I think it's just suggesting that it's not in conformance right now. I mean,
Well, existing's 504.
allowable 504.
I'm sorry, allowable 504. Existing was
Allowable.
780, right? Let's see, I'm sorry.
But 70 feet is up.
78.
That's not all the driveway.
Proposed is 780, but
I
the
don't see where
existing
it
must
says
be.
with the existing.
That's
The
probably.
current coverage is 630.
630, there you go. And
So-
proposed is 780. And so I was worried that the request was for more than what he really was adding. Because it seemed to me that he's adding less than 100 feet, but we're, we got 150 is the number that we're adding to the existing.
So we're saying, 150 is what we'd be allowing, and you think that it's less than 150?
Right, if you looked at what, because,
It goes in about 3 feet.
In the
You know,
center.
Looking at the overhang in the center, so if you did 3 feet by the 25, it would seem like he's only adding 75 square feet, but it could be that the existing isn't calculated right. I mean, the overall is gonna be the 25 by the 22, so,
so as long as we're saying that 780 is the total amount that is the new total, it's insignificant what the difference is because we may not have the existing, right? All right.
And the dimensions are accurate.
So it's actually a smaller request.
It seemed to me.
Because when I saw the larger request, I thought most of the time when we have a garage that's 22 feet, the driveway might be 20 feet, not 22.
Right, because if you look at this, what he's proposing to do is at the corners of the garage, the structure itself comes straight back to, as opposed to the sides of, the edges of the garage door, which is what a lot of them are. Now, I drove around the area and, some are, some aren't. Just because the houses are all set back different distances. His garage happens to be closest to the street of any of the houses on the block. I was looking for some, common issue, and he's got a unique situation. That's basically what I came up with, and yet, in the past, I've not been in support of just parking cars in the driveway because you've got too much stuff in your garage.
And that's what this comes down to.
And that's what this comes down to, because, so what, now, the argument then is, what's his hardship here? You know, is his hardship that,
Nothing's been stated as a hardship.
well, I'm trying to help him. Is the hardship that the garage is too close to the street?
That just,
That causes all this extra impervious surface to count against him?
Are we in discussion yet?
yeah, it's,
I'm trying to help him.
I guess the one thing that I looked at was, you know, we're concerned about flooding. So the more we pave stuff, the more opportunity there is for areas to flood. So when I looked at it, I thought, I can see the issue. I mean, we went through this recently with that house near Harper. And I actually don't remember how we voted on that, but again, they had a garage, but they had a single-car garage. Here, the solution to me might be that aesthetically, I don't think it would make any difference, but if you paved one side of it, I don't think it's necessary to do the side to the north, if you were to approve it. But again,
can we maybe move into discussion?
okay.
All right. We're trying to figure out how to justify this for you. So one of the criteria that we have is what we refer to as having a hardship, a uniqueness to your property or to the way the structures sit on the property, something that's unique that causes you to need the relief from the zoning code. All right?
Right.
So, you know, as I pointed out, your garage sits further forward than anybody else's. But still, what this is coming down to is, you know, having to park a car in the driveway all the time.
Even if one car is parked, if I have to park the other one in the garage, I still have to move on the grass so I can get in the garage. It's too narrow. I mean,
Yeah. The driveway comes, because you're parking one car in the driveway, as
Yeah.
opposed to using the two-car garage for both your cars.
So
Yeah. So, is there anything else you can add for us to show us why,
like, why it's hard to park both cars in the garage? I mean,
because you got a lot of stuff?
it's
Yeah.
the garage. It's about the same. So once I'm with two cars in a garage, I won't be able to get out that easy from the cars. It's a two-car garage, but it's still narrow.
So the garage is 22.2 feet in width, which means your door is roughly 20 feet in width.
I'll probably have to remove everything from the garage, including all the shelves that I have, just empty completely,
Yeah.
so I can get out of the car. Everybody has some shelves in the garage. I mean, that's the only. I'll have to probably rent a storage, which will cost me $200 a month, so I can park both cars in the garage.
Right. So what it looked like when I...
Well, no, I think, are you saying both cars in the garage, or are you saying one in the garage, one in the
Well,
driveway?
I was saying both in the garage, yeah.
Oh.
So what it looks like, you know, because the track from tires is on the south side of the driveway,
Yeah.
which is, kind of alludes to what Mr. Sermon's saying, is maybe, you know, if you just do the one side of the driveway to that width and the other, you know, because you're replacing it all, right?
Yeah.
Kind of keep it in line with the garage so you don't do the extra foot on that side. Would that help you?
It will help. The thing is, it's gonna look weird. One straight side and one.
No.
curved.
Both sides would be straight, but because you're replacing the whole driveway, right?
Yeah, I'm placing it.
Right. So on the south side, we give you that extra width, but on the north side,
I'll just stay where I
we
am.
just stay but make it straight line,
Straight.
but not the extra 2 feet or whatever.
I can do that. I think I should be fine. That's gonna give me another 2 feet
Yeah, to give you 2 feet to the south, but not to the north.
to the north.
And Mr. Sermon's implying that would be more amenable, you know, of a solution than on both sides.
Oh, I can do that. I mean, 2 feet is gonna be helpful if that's all I can get.
2 feet would be helpful, 4 feet would be best.
Will be best.
All right.
Maybe I can, how about if I can do like 1 feet on one side and 1 feet on the other side? So I can center the driveway. I don't want, because
So the reason I think the idea of being on the south side, giving you more room on the south side, because then it gets it further over to that side.
yeah.
I don't know that anybody noticed that the driveway's off-center, you know what I mean? But it would pull that car maybe further over from the center to give you more room to get past it, being wider on the one side as opposed to the
I
other.
should be okay if I add 1 foot on the side, 1 foot on the other side.
So,
So
Lisa, so do we want to amend this request? So the driveway then, let's see.
Well, in reality, I mean, wasn't this the one on Greenwood that?
Yep.
We did the same thing?
Greenwood is the one that, yeah, that was, so we gave them a lot of width. So Lisa and I talked about this one before the meeting also. I voted no.
If
I was the only one that voted no.
we're essentially in discussion, so
Well, I'm trying to, but if we go,
if we're in discussion, then I'd like to just throw in my 2 cents worth for discussion, because I'm a little bit torn by this, but what we're really trying to do is accommodate front yard parking,
which everybody does.
which, but that doesn't mean that we create a variance to accommodate front yard parking. I think that's the issue, and if we're gonna discuss the issue, that should be the issue. If we
So,
want,
but the reason we're talking to him about what he would be willing to do is because if we have to amend this before we go to discussion to approve it or not. But ultimately, it is to provide a parking space in the front yard setback
2
of a
parking
property.
spaces in the summer.
Yeah. If I could take a straw vote, I mean, is this something that if he amends his request, kind of like what we were discussing, is this something that anybody sees that would help their support, or?
You know, I think in reality, I mean, I don't think the request is as large. I mean, I agree with you. And you have, because the way the house is situated, you have 73 square feet of the house. And I think I think you're probably closer to 80 square feet
Of addition, yeah.
of addition. And given what we did with the Greenwood house, which has the same issue of, you know, a garage that can't fit a car because it's fitting everything else, I don't know why you'd amend this.
Okay.
For
I think there was a
basically
different-
20 square feet.
Well, it wouldn't be 20, it'd be half.
It'd be
Half of the.
two times, okay, 40 square feet.
That's in the
Essentially,
math,
as
I'm
I saw
sorry.
it, it's to make the driveway wider than the garage door.
Yep.
If you can fit 2 cars into the garage door,
Well, what kind
then
of
you can
cars do
fit
you
them on
have?
the driveway.
SUV.
I mean, that's how they're designed, and,
What
you
kind-
know,
I mean-
there were 2 cars there.
I got
They
an
weren't parked
SUV and a-
Fine,
really
but you
close
get
to
these, you
each
get these
other.
big SUVs and stuff, and it's a different, you know, they're wider, they're,
It's a standard size.
It's a 22-foot wide garage, which is, 22 by 20 is what
Yeah.
garage is.
I mean, if it, to reference another one as a precedent for doing this, then are we gonna
Yeah, there were different conditions at
set a
that one.
precedent for, not that precedents matter, we always say, but
I think the biggest difference in the Greenwood one was that it was a one-car garage that was much smaller of a garage.
Exactly.
But they still probably could have got a car in there, but they weren't using it for a car because it was inconvenient.
they weren't gonna use it for a car.
They never were. That's why, so I voted no on that one because I didn't see a hardship. This one is very similar, but if you're looking at this only because of impervious surface, well then, it's a slightly different decision, but the reality is what we've started discussing. It's really about parking
the
cars in the front yard.
reality is, the testimony we heard is it's to create parking spaces in the front yard.
That being absolutely factually accurate, right? But they're already, we're not changing the condition. Like, we're not, there's already 2 cars in that driveway. So by us allowing any additional impervious surface isn't going to allow 2 cars, right? They're already there. And we can't stop the applicant from parking the 2 cars there. So if we deny them, 2 cars still parking there. You know what I mean? So we're not creating additional parking there. We're not creating something from
I'm
nothing.
not prepared to accept that if somebody does something and that it becomes a constructive easement and therefore becomes okay by zoning to do, that we should validate it.
We're not
He can park a car in the middle of his lawn, too.
No, well, we're not validated because
That doesn't mean-
it's already being done. We're not creating 2 parking spaces there. We're not,
I can
because
be
there's 2 parking
swayed,
spaces there.
I just need some sway.
I guess I would-
Because it's parking spaces, that's what the request is for. It's for 2 parking spaces.
I mean, you could look at it that the hardship is a little bit, is the configuration that was originally created with that bow. And if we were to say that for a standard 22-foot garage, we typically accept 20 feet as the width, I think that would be acceptable, because that's
I would
sort of
agree-
the
I would
standard.
agree with that, if it aligned with the doors.
Or whatever
Whatever
that
the door
dimension
opening
is.
is for a 2-car garage, the driveway should be straight. I'd be fine with that.
Okay. So if he amended his request, though, and asked for an extra foot on each side, instead of an extra roughly 2 feet on
Has to
each
fill
side,
it in so it aligns to the door and comes out straight.
but
I
get an
wouldn't
extra,
object to that, because I would say the tapering of it is goofy, but I think the tapering right now is from the
door.
outside of the garage.
No, if I remember right, it's from the doors. Right now, it lines up with the edges of the doors.
The tapering?
No, the widest part lines up with
Widest
the
part
outside
is
of the
there.
doors. And then it tapers in, and then finishes in about
Yeah.
even width to the doors.
That's what it looks like. Fortunately, we don't have that dimension across that one area. Like the
Yeah.
sidewalk or the,
Yeah, that's why I drove around to see,
Well,
who
clearly,
else
the way it's
is.
drawn, it goes all the way to the outside. I mean,
Yeah, but
the
it-
survey shows it going all the way to the outside, so,
yeah.
yeah. I mean,
I guess I'd look at it and I say, if somebody came to us right now, brand-new structure, and said, hey, I want to have a driveway that's the same width as the actual building of the garage, I think we'd say no. So at some point, we have to decide what that reasonable number is
As a variance request.
as a variant would be acceptable to me. When I saw the thing being 22 feet wide, I look at it, and I always look parking spaces
2 parking
at
spaces
malls.
aren't 22 feet wide.
Yeah, parking spaces are typically anywhere from 8 feet wide to 9 feet. So if you took 9 feet and 9 feet, that's 18. That's typically the width of the garage door.
And the
So
door's
then-
about 18 feet, right? Well, in this case, the door's about 20 feet. Because you look, he's got 22 feet of width from corner to
Is it
corner of
only
the
a
building.
foot on each side?
I'm pretty sure it's only a foot on each side. I'm not
Doesn't show on the
100%
survey.
sure. You have any idea on that? Yeah.
I just think
It's just width of the
22
door.
feet is excessive.
Yeah,
We
that's
would not.
not what that shows.
Actually, no, you look at the
For it to
building,
be
it
wider
comes
than the
out,
door.
otherwise
Yeah, I
it's
get
straight
this
to the
little
doors. So, right, it comes out, but this is
Given that it's
whatever the
already
width
over.
of the door is, all the way to here until it comes out.
I'd be comfortable
So these line up with
if
the
it were
sides
to
of the door.
increase a
You would-
little
if
bit
we-
what's there and let it be the same as the doors. It's a
Loses space.
2-car garage.
If we make it line up with the doors, presumably he loses.
Put 2 cars in the garage.
Actually,
Because he loses this little kick out on the side by
Right.
the,
looks like it almost aligns with the,
So what it looks, Lisa just showed me a picture, what it looks like the driveway does is it comes in and it flares out to the corners of the building,
Right.
but the rest of the driveway lines up with the width of the door.
yeah.
The rest of the driveway, it's curved the whole way. So at some point.
According to this drawing it is, but if you look at the picture, it's not.
I have one picture that shows the left side, and it looks like the center of the arc aligns with the door. the other side.
But it's not as
Car was-
dramatic as the drawing that we have, is if you look at the pictures. Here, Bob, take a look at it. This one's a little different.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that doesn't look really like the
No.
drawing.
No, it doesn't at all. Mr. Buff, sorry, we're trying to make this work for you. I know it's taken longer than
I really
it
appreciate
probably
it, no.
should.
Um,
Did you? There's about 4 pictures.
So it's as wide. You know, when I saw it, the car was on the dirt. There's a lot of space between the two cars.
That's
More
mine.
than you'd get at Costco.
All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a little pressure on you.
Okay.
You've heard our discussion. Do you want to proceed as you've proposed? Would you like to amend your request? One of the two.
I do have a chance to get to just add 1 feet on the side.
Well,
1
that's
feet on
what, that would be the amending the request.
Amending.
Or, look, if you, to play out your options, if you want to proceed as proposed, there's 5 of us, and it gets, maybe, let's say it gets 3-2, all right? That's going to be a negative recommendation to the village board. Being a negative recommendation, the village board will discuss it on September 11th, and you can be here and you can present to them also, make your request. Village board can overturn our decision, because we just make a recommendation to them. We don't have the final decision, they do. Oftentimes, they will turn things over, you know, if they see, you know, a reason that it works, or if they want to move the village in a certain direction for private property. If you amend it and it's less of a request, maybe you swing somebody and you get the 4-1.
I'll amend it. I can just go a little bit smaller.
So you want to be a foot on either side.
Put on the other side. So
So-
it's gonna be like 20.
So it'll be about a 20-foot
Gonna
wide
go 1 foot
driveway.
inside from the corner of the building, and I should be fine.
So we're talking about a 20-foot width driveway is what we're talking about. So, all right. Is there anything else you want to add for us before I close this and we discuss and then vote on the 20-foot width of the driveway?
I'll just leave it that way. That's it.
All right. Thank you very
And
much.
does it say in here that that's a new driveway, so it'll be straight then? All curves will be eliminated?
A
or-
20-foot, we're going to call it a 20-foot width driveway from the apron of the garage to the sidewalk.
Okay.
So it's roughly 25 feet by 20. So what is that? That's 1,000 square feet? No, 25, 20, yeah, 2 zeros. 500. 25 times 2. Thank you very much for the quick math. Good thing you're in banking. It's your phone.
I was going to ask Bob if I could use his calculator.
No. Do you want to use it?
Okay, I'm going to close the case. You can have a seat. In a moment, we're going to have somebody make a motion here once we have the new numbers.
So like 657?
So the total is 657 now,
Yeah, total.
and at 504 is the allowable.
Yeah.
350. So roughly 153.22, okay. 153.22 is the new request. So do I have a member of the board who'd like to make a motion on this?
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Coley.
What are the new numbers here?
The new number, it's 276 is 153.22.
And how many percent is that?
9.12.
Pardon? 9?
9.12.
Move to recommend granting a request for a 153.22 square foot or 9.12% front yard impervious surface coverage variation to permit the widening of the existing driveway on the legal nonconforming structure at 514 Knox Avenue in accordance with the plan submitted.
The plans being that this is a 20-foot wide driveway from the apron of the garage to the sidewalk. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Mr. Coley?
Yeah, I, kind of in line with some of the pre-discussion we had, I think, yeah, it's certainly not unreasonable to have a 20-foot width driveway here. I think we've done this for some other homes in Wilmette, and I think that this is a reasonable request. It's relatively small, and I think it meets the standards of review.
Mr. Boyer?
I agree. I would add that 73 square feet of the house is also in the impervious surface coverage, right? Right. So that gross is 657, our net is 584 square feet over. So I think the siting of the home has a little bit to do with the request. So I'd also support it.
Any other comments?
I think the siting has a little to do with it. I think but we've reduced the request down. It's a much more reasonable one, and I think it'll function. The function will work well.
Right, so I just want to clarify something. So the maximum allowable is 504 square feet. The current coverage is 630.43.
634, you said?
630.43.
Oh, okay.
So existing, he's over by 125. And he's requesting 153. So we got a 28-foot request.
Right.
Additional request, 28 square feet. That being clarified, Mr. Robke, you have anything you want to?
I agree the tapered driveway's stupid. Looks silly, so to straighten it out, I'll support the request
Okay,
as amended.
as amended. All right. My, I brought up the struggle, personal struggle on this. It's obviously parking a car in the front yard. I think this is quite different than the Greenleaf request. Because what we have here is the garage protruding so far forward that if this garage didn't stick out into the front yard as far as it did, we may not have a request at all for a widening of the driveway. And I see that as the biggest difference between that request from our last meeting to this request. Because we got 28 feet is really the difference right now, and the whole reason we're talking about it is because of the garage. So I don't know. I'm struggling with it because I'm not in favor of just parking cars in the front yard. So why don't we take a vote?
Mr. Colling?
Yes.
Mr. Boyer?
Yes.
Mr. Rubke?
Yes.
Mr. Sermon?
Yes.
Chairman Duffy?
Chair's going to vote no. So that's going to go as a positive recommendation to the village board, and that's for that 20-foot wide driveway. And the meeting's on September 11th. It should get approved. You might want to show up anyway. It'd be in this room on September 11th. I believe they start at 7 o'clock. I do need you to come forward and just sign one of these letters for us, acknowledging your presence and some dates. And thank you very much for coming. Do you have someone to make a recommendation?
Yeah.
I move to authorize the chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the Zoning Board of Appeals for case number 2018 Z35.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. When you're ready.
Our next case is 2018 Z33, 517 Central Avenue. This is a request for an 8.98-foot front yard setback variation, a 2.98-foot front yard porch setback variation, and a 7.4-foot front yard porch step setback variation to permit the construction of a one-story addition, front porch, and steps on the legal non-conforming structure.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Pat Moran. I'm the owner of the house. And obviously, we're requesting what is essentially a replacement of the front porch and converting it into an actual part of the house so we can use it year-round. And as you probably have seen from the materials, the gist of it is that we're not going to change the footprint of the house at all. The front steps might protrude out just a little bit further in order to conform with the code as it relates to the risers, so the front steps are safer, I should say. So the reason we want to do this, obviously, it started with recognizing that the front steps are in need of being replaced. And if you've been out there, you've seen that there's rotting parts of it. We actually have an orange cone in the front, the very top of it, because there's a hole there now. And as we talked about what we should do in terms of replacing that, we also recognize there's problems with the porch itself and that the front door won't lock or close properly. And that, I think, is the result of some kind of sloping in the front. Maybe the building settled differently, I don't know. And that makes it easy to get into, and there's windows that you could just go right through into our house from the front porch. So we would like to change that and take out those windows, make the front porch part of our house. We have 3 little children, ages 7, 5, and 3, and that front porch area would essentially become an indoor play area for them. Our basement is kind of small. There's not really a play area there. The area that's designated on the drawings that we submitted as a play area also doubles as the laundry area. So that will be helpful to us. And obviously, we didn't build the structure initially. It was built over 100 years ago, so we didn't create the existing footprint and its encroachment on the 59-foot setback. The numbers that are before you, I think, are pretty consistent with what is currently there now. So we would ask that you approve the variation and allow us to make this improvement to our home.
So really, where the steps are right now, where the front edge of the existing porch is right now, you're not going any farther into the front yard. Everything's just being replaced right exactly where all that stuff is.
Right.
All right. In addition, you're digging out, you're creating more basement, and there's nothing going above the porch that you're adding, right?
No, it would look exactly like it does now, except for the fact that the entrance area will be a covered front porch instead of part of the existing. It looks like it's entirely all one piece now. And even the way the roof slopes down will look the same.
All right.
So basically, you're actually shifting it to the south because your landing is being eliminated and the landing is underneath the new structure.
Exactly.
And you plan on leaving that beautiful tree right there?
Yeah.
in front
All the
of
trees are
everything?
going to stay as long as they're alive and well, and
Okay.
nothing's falling off that we have to worry about.
Any other questions?
Yeah, in your letter, you indicate the hardship is because of the condition of the porch, but there's really nothing to stop you from rebuilding the porch and completing these repairs and rebuilding the steps and filling the hole that's currently there. There's no technical reason why that couldn't be repaired.
My understanding that in order to rebuild it completely, we would still need to get the approval of the zoning board?
Yes, you would, but you could be asking for that instead. There's no technical reason. You could, the setback requirement would be different, the incursion would be different, because we'd be talking about an existing porch being there instead of a building, so the ask would be less, plus it's all existing conditions. So there's no technical reason why you couldn't rebuild the porch, is that correct?
Apart from the fact that we recognize by spending the money to do this, we would be adding significantly to the value of our home and also to the, I think to the overall community. I mean, this is a house that will increase in value, and that increase in value is obviously going to have a ripple effect around the area. To just rebuild the porch exactly as it is now, I mean, yes, we could cure some of those safety issues, but that to me doesn't really it doesn't seem like a very economical use of our money.
Economical is a different consideration. One of your hardships was claiming these safety issues, and I'm just noting that there's no reason these safety issues couldn't be addressed.
Well, I mean, yes, but we would, I guess I'm a little confused.
You may not want to spend the money on it, but there's no technical reason why it couldn't be addressed.
Well,
So
This is more-
I
I
have a
mean-
question. Let me, if he was just to replace the steps in that porch area that is rotting apart, he'd still have to have the same request, right? Because the existing enclosed porch is still encroaching into the setback.
But it would be a different request, because the setback for the porch requires 53 versus 59 for building.
But the building exists right now.
The porch exists in that location.
But it's
It's an enclosed porch all the way
now.
across the front, so isn't that counting as encroaching in the front yard setback? That's the question.
Yeah.
Because that's why I asked, what's the difference? Is anything going to change as far as the building coming further into the front yard? No.
Well, it may be enclosed. I don't think it's heated, it's tempered, they're proposing a new foundation, so I don't think it has a full foundation. I don't think technically it'd be considered building right now.
it does have heat going to it.
So,
I mean, it's used as a play area for our kids now, but the problem
Okay,
is that,
right.
yeah.
So
right.
Lisa,
let's let Lisa
We're
answer the
talking
question.
about 2.98 feet, is that what we're talking about?
I think so.
Okay.
Well,
Just
Lisa,
wanted
what's,
to make sure.
what's
No,
the,
no, 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 no. No, we're,
Yeah, 2.98 feet.
well, Lisa, would the request be any different if he was just coming to replace the steps in the wooden porch?
If we considered the current porch and the replacement porch to be an open porch, and ditto with the steps, and it was all existing, there is a provision in the ordinance to allow exact replacement of an existing non-conforming porch without any zoning relief
if
needed.
that was open?
If we considered it open, which from the site plan, it looks like it, we'd probably go out and look at it in the field and see if it was, treated as an enclosed space or if it really was functionally sort of open.
Right, it's not.
Yeah, it's fully enclosed
It's
with
fully-
windows.
yeah.
So basically, just replacing it, the
So-
configuration of the windows is a little different to match the rest, and
Just
That's it.
so we close this loop, so if this is considered an enclosed porch,
If this is not considered a porch that could encroach and really is considered part of the structure, then no, it could not be replaced without zoning relief.
and then there would be the exact same ask.
So, yeah, I think we're going where I was asking. My ask is, all right, so he wants to replace this.
Just the
Let's say
steps.
he just wants to replace that.
Right.
Would we still have the request, because this is an enclosed porch, all of this is all encroaching into the front yard by a couple of feet, would we still have the same request even if he was just replacing the wood area that needs to be fixed?
If he was replacing the steps as they exist, no zoning relief would be needed.
Okay, but because he's coming and he's going to take this off, he's going to,
Right, it's changing it.
No.
Well, he's basically building an addition that's in the front, a fully enclosed,
Yep.
permanent space that's not allowed to encroach.
okay. So did you understand what was just discussed there? So-
I'm confused. So here I see existing, is 50.02.
Yeah.
Required is 59.
Yeah.
Proposed is 50.02, so there's no change. And on the front yard step, required is 50, existing is 42, proposed is 42.6, so basically no change. So really, the only change is on the front yard porch of 2.98 feet is the,
So the difference, though, is because so my question was, if he just replaces the part that needs to be repaired, the rotting wooden steps and that landing, would he need to have a request from us? The answer is no. He could just replace that without a zoning request. But because he's creating a new structure, essentially, he now has to come and ask for the zoning relief, because he's tearing this off, he's building foundation.
right, so he's
building
leaving two
But
of
the-
the setbacks the same, and he
Right.
needs 2.98 feet.
Right, he needs 2.98 feet setback, but he's here because he's
I
building.
understand,
But the way
Yeah.
this is written, it says it's an enclosed porch, and makes a distinction that it's enclosed porch, not that they're replacing a part of a building with a part of a building. Is the only distinction whether it's got some windows that are in there, or not whether it's got a proper foundation and it's a proper building? I mean, I'm just trying to understand, but because
Right.
if that's considered a building, then I totally agree, then it's a an insignificant
It's a replacing a
ask,
blank.
but if I'm reading this, it's replacing a porch and putting an addition there instead of a porch, the implication being that there's a distinction between a porch and the rest of the house.
So when we look at structures like this, one of the things we look at is whether the front door goes into the house. And so, for example, you have to go through the porch to the front door. You can't. It is serving as a porch in that sense. We would also look to see, like you were saying with the windows, is it permanently installed windows? Are they temporary windows? Is it just screen? We'd also look at the sort of the structure of the porch. If it's very stucco and it's very mostly built out with just windows, we're going to tend to look at it as a permanent structure as opposed to a more sort of traditional open porch with a railing and things like that. For the purposes of this analysis, we were treating it as if it were an enclosed, not as part of the house, not as an encroachable porch, because of the
So the foundation system doesn't
and
matter for that.
I'm sorry, that's part of it too. If the basement had fully extended under this, basement is not allowable encroachment into the front yard. So we would have said, okay, that's part of the house. It's not a porch encroachment.
But right now,
in the
there's no
in the current,
basement there,
right, yeah.
So they're adding a basement, so it
Right.
suggests that there's a change
Right.
in
Certainly a
what
change to the
this is
structure.
viewed as.
Right.
Right. Now, the aesthetic change is going to be nil, because you won't know that there was or wasn't a basement existing now or afterward. So to Mr. Colling's, point, you're not going to know what the difference is if you drove by next year from this year.
I hope that doesn't become a standard that we judge things.
I-
What we don't know won't hurt us.
In the-
Well, I think the distinction is, there's windows that are removable windows that are in there now. They're not permanent windows. They seem to be readily removable from what I could see. They may not have been removed in a while. Somebody may have tried to caulk them in place, but the wall construction isn't what we would deem to be an exterior wall in the village of Wilmette. So I think it comes down, when we get to discussion, to whether we encourage front porches or not.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I'm kind of curious where this discussion is going, so I can understand what
I
what
think we're all
exactly.
a little curious. I think it's just to understand the issues.
Well,
So,
well, let me ask this question: what difference? Your point about the windows. What difference does that make?
But to me, it's a matter of whether it's a porch or whether it's a part of the building.
So, if the windows were permanent fixtures on that area, would it be part of the house then?
I
in
think
your
there's several criteria. The nature of the construction, as I look at it, and I haven't heard Lisa tell me that the code says otherwise. It's built like a porch. It's insulated like a porch. It's got windows like a porch.
Well,
Kind of think it's a porch. In which case, that's how the setback requirements come into play.
because it seems like it's kind of a hybrid between a porch and a part of the house, and the windows are actually permanent fixtures.
Do you use it, I guess the question I have to try to figure this out is, do you use it year-round currently?
As much as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the kids
So I
go out
would
there in the
say-
cold.
So I would say that it was possibly constructed as a porch, but right now it's a structure.
Yeah, and it was used that way when
Yeah.
we bought the house in 2013.
I mean, there's no other issues, there's no FAR issues, there's no
Yeah.
impervious surface issues. Are we gonna torture this, or?
I'm trying to,
Okay.
so is there,
Less than a porch is less than-
is there anything else you'd like to add? Yeah,
Nothing at this point.
okay, thank you. I'm going to close the case and ask if there's a member of the board who'd like to make the motion. Mr. Boyer, thank you very much. You can have a seat.
Okay.
Yeah.
In regards to case number 2018-Z33, I move to recommend granting a request for an 8.98-foot front yard setback variation, a 2.98 front yard porch setback variation, and a 7.4-foot front yard porch step setback variation to permit the construction of a one-story addition, front porch and steps on the legal non-conforming structure at 5
17 Central Avenue with accordance with the plan submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, who was that? Mr. Sermon? All right, well, Mr. Sermon second. Mr. Boyer, your motion.
All right, so we have 3 requests on a house with an existing structure that is being replaced. Just so happens that there is a little bit of difference, I guess, in the new use of the structure. It's going to be more of a permanent structure versus what's potentially what was originally constructed over 100 years ago. The use has changed over the course of time. It was enclosed at some point. I think the sister house is right next door at 524, 521, the exact same house right next door. Their porch is open. This porch was closed at some point. It's a really large lot. It's 210 feet in depth, 10,500 square feet. The look of the house is not going to change. The FAR isn't an issue. Impervious surface, front yard setbacks, there's no issue. They're just asking to rebuild the structure exactly the way it was, which we would need a variance anyway to rebuild exactly what they have. So in light of all those things, I think on structures like this, older homes, I think this is one of the things that we can look at in supporting it, that older homes should be given a little bit of leeway, especially they were built well before codes were enacted, and some of these houses where they're sited get caught in the new existing codes. I don't think this new structure is going to have any impact on the neighborhood, the neighbors. I think the practical difficulty and the hardship is this house is being caught up in the codes that were written well before zoning codes were even enacted in the 1920s. So I think it meets all the standards of review. I really don't have any problem with it.
Mr. Sermon?
I agree with Mr. Boyer. I think it'll actually have less impact a little bit because the threshold for the stairway now is within the building instead of outside of the building. Also the stairs from a safety perspective, by rebuilding those per code, will be a safer situation. And it's really replacing what is there in shape and form, just a different construction type, more permanent.
Mr. Robke, do you have something to add?
I do. I'm still not sure how I feel about this, but I will disagree respectfully with both my colleagues. It's not being replaced exactly with what's there. It's a completely different type of construction. It walks like a porch. It talks like a porch. I think it is a porch that's there. And my questions that I've been asking go to what the ask is, because a porch has a 53-yard setback, 53-foot front yard setback as opposed to a 59. I think that's a porch that's there now. I've listened attentively to Lisa's comments trying to clarify, and I think there's quite a bit of ambiguity. It's whether it's enclosed, it's whether it's got a proper foundation. Well, it's got some of these, it doesn't have others. I think the issue I have is I'm just not clear really what the ask is. To me, it seems to be a porch. It's referenced as a porch, and then it's calculated like it's not a porch. And I think we do encourage front porches. And yes, there's this very similar house right next to it that has an open porch. And I think when we look at what the community's looking for, it's especially in this neighborhood of the old houses, to have those porches. There's nothing that says that they can't put these temporary windows in there that they have now and use it as a 3 or 4 season space. But it's a porch, and I'm reading this ask as to take down a porch, to put a full basement underneath it, which is a new interpretation, or clearly makes it a building, that it's got a proper foundation. And it's a very different ask. So I'm troubled by that. So I'm interested to hear what the remaining 2 members have to say.
Well, from my perspective, I mean, you're basically duplicating it. You want to call it a porch, you want to call it a permanent structure. It's on the same footprint, and so from my perspective, I mean, I think it's form over substance. You know, they're not adding porch, wrapping around. There's no other issues as it relates to FAR or impervious surface. It's an old home. It's a 100-year-plus home. I kind of invoked the Derbyshire rule that some of these old homes, and Mr. Boyer did that, you know, you have to, you know, work to accommodate these. Otherwise, you know, people will just start knocking them down if they want to build something, you know, more modern and get somewhere they want to go. I think this is a very modest ask. I think the footprint is the same, and I can support it. I see no reason to not support this.
So, you know, I understand absolutely Mr. Robke's argument here. The house will technically now protrude to where the existing front porch is, and after the addition, because you're putting a basement, it's going to be part of the structure, and that's going to be 8.9 feet into the front yard setback. In addition, they're going to repair the stairs and put a landing, a porch. That's the porch section. And so that's the other part of the setback, or the other part of the request here. So when I went to the site, I walked up to the front corner, and I looked to the east. I said, all right, is this going to protrude any farther than existing, or is this going to affect any of the neighbors? Is going to change anything? And my impression was not. It comes out pretty much as far as the neighbor, and a few doors down to the east, it comes out pretty close to that. Walk to the other side, same comment, you know, equal to the neighbor. I think there's only two or three houses to the west. And so I really didn't see any change that was going to happen. I understand that we're doing an addition as opposed to a porch or an enclosed porch, but I just didn't see how it was going to, you know, change the neighborhood, the look and feel of the neighborhood. I didn't see how it was going to change any kind of light and air impact on the neighbors. I didn't see how this really was going to affect anybody other than the people living there and taking advantage of what they were adding to the house. Do I like, you know, the addition into setbacks like this? No, but it's, in a way, it's already existing. Although it's not a house right now because it doesn't have the foundation and the permanence of a house that it will after the addition, it's really not going to be any kind of a change as you look at it from the outside. So that's where I kind of fell to, I can support it because I kind of made the comment, and you teased me, you know, who's going to notice the difference, you know? So although it is a permanent structure and it's into the front yard, this is an older home, and in a way it's already existing, and in a way it's replacing what's existing. And so, and it's not an additional request, and they're not trying to make any larger than it already is, so.
One difference, two differences I'd point. Now, still, at this moment, I'm still not sure where I'm going to lie, where I'm going to fall on this one. You know, when you compare the front of it, some of that front that you're comparing to are clearly porches that are set back. And, you know, I still look at this, you take those windows out, and it's as much a porch, not quite as nice as the one right next to it, but it has the potential to be just as nice as some of the other porches that read as porches. We're permanently changing the character of it by allowing this addition to replace that porch. It is going to change. It's going to preclude it from going back to a porch because nobody's going to tear it down to put up a porch, especially with an investment in foundations and everything else. And that's the part that troubles me. It's not that there's, you know, I understand there's windows in there now, and you know, I had a bungalow in the city. I had a 3-season porch that I used on 4 seasons, and just with extra sweaters in the 4th. You know, but to me, it's still a porch, and I think we need to address how get an understanding of what that is, because it's a different request.
Yeah.
So,
I guess I just, I agree with both sides. I think if they came to us and it was a porch and they said, we want to take off the porch,
You're saying like a traditional more open style?
if it was an open style porch and they came to us and said, hey, we want to tear this porch off now and change it into something, that would be one thing, but,
I'll bet within 2 hours, all those windows could be out, and it'd be a pretty traditional porch.
It looked a little more, it looked like there was
looks a
more wall
little more
structure there.
substantial to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I guess, taking it from the owner's perspective, hey, I bought a house with the usable area inside, and now you're telling me that just because I'm going to not have a floor that maybe slopes a little, and now it's going to be flat, it changes.
And build a foundation in a basement.
And build a foundation. I mean,
Basement.
yeah.
Another thing to look at too is, the age of the house and how it sits on the lot. To Mr. Boyer's point, this house was built at a time, hey, I can put the house wherever I want, but we're going to set it here. And yes, it's a front porch, but hey, if it's 9 feet, it's not significant. You're not going to notice the 9 feet. The neighbors aren't going to see it different. It's not like we're putting a big addition on that wasn't already there. It didn't feel like it was already there. So,
I think the neighborhood loses something when you take away the ability for that to be a porch,
just a plain porch.
to be opened
Yeah,
up, to
open
be a porch.
Yeah, but it hasn't been used that way, so you're not taking anything away.
Right.
You absolutely are. You're taking away the ability to do that. The next owner could very well want it
Want
to
to
be
put a front porch on the front of
which
this.
is what it was designed as and how it was constructed. So,
Then they'd have
yeah, I've
to
heard
cut it all
several-
up and.
I've heard several other members on this board talk about how important front porches are to the plan and to the community development, and it's one of the things that sort of sensitized me to it.
Yeah.
So,
All right, why don't we take a vote?
Mr. Boyer,
Yes.
Mr. Sermon,
Yes.
Mr. Colang,
Yes.
Mr. Rabke,
No.
Chairman Duffy.
Chair's going to vote yes. That's going to go as a positive recommendation of the village board. Sorry if that was me. September 11th is the meeting. Might want to come, just see how the village politics operate. If I could have you come up here, Mr. Moran, and sign one of these and take the other one with you, I'd appreciate it. And thank you very much for coming and listening to us debate.
I move to authorize chairman to prepare the report and recommendation for the zoning board of appeals for case number 2018 Z33.
Second, Mr. Sermon, second. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. I'm going to open the microphone for public comment. Does anybody want to make a comment or announcement or anything? Seeing nobody rushing, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.